Taiwanese cities look like dog shit. They look old and tired, or like they're gonna fall over at any second, like me.
I just watched Prozzie's video on 12 things he hates about Taiwan, and you should watch it too. Link down below.
Even the new infrastructure that they build, like Taichung's very own first MRT line, they decided to paint that baby. The Chinese won't even be able to tell if they've bombed yet.
I guess if I wanted to be more positive, I could say that there is some sort of a rough around the edges charm to the neighborhoods here, if you can get past the prison bars on the window and the accumulation of dust and grime.
I totally agree on this. The only places with modern buildings and shopping centers are really in the center of big cities. Taipei, Kaohsiung, Taichung. But I mean, every time I go back to London, I actually start missing this, even if everything's so old and dusty, built at home.
Instead of having a nice comfy sofa like the one I've got here, they'll swap that out for like a park bench, just a wooden sofa.
This is exactly what my father-in-law does. Sofa, table, cabinet you see, it has to be made out of wood. And if I ask them, hey, do you want to change it to furniture that could save a lot of space? They would say, no, I prefer this.
A lot of people believe that it's better for your back, so that's why they have hard beds, hard sofa. Even the garbage trucks make noise here. But what really pisses me off is the obnoxious, needless noise. So what happens is every young Taiwanese kids get their license to drive their scooter, and the first thing they do is rip off the stock exhaust and put on the loudest, most obnoxious exhaust you've ever heard in your life.
I don't understand why those kids have to do that. I am annoyed by that as well. I live in Taiwan for a lot of years, and I went to high school in Taiwan, and I do not understand why people that were my age did this.
What's worse is that that same kid gets older and daddy buys him a new Mercedes, and what does he do? The same thing he did to the scooter. Rip off the stop exhaust and stick on a really loud muffler. For whatever reason, Taiwanese people are incredibly open about what they do and what goes on in the bathroom. Whereas in the West, like where I'm from, what happens in the bathroom is more of a private affair. You don't talk to people while they're in the bathroom. You don't ask them how it was. I've had a lot of incidences of people like knocking on the door, asking them if I'm okay, or just waiting around the general bathroom area, making me feel incredibly uncomfortable.
I think probably the toilet culture started when we were young. Because when I went to school here, most girls, we asked each other, hey, do you want to go to the bathroom? Guys, sometimes. I've seen a lot of guys going to the bathroom. And the thing is, when you're in the bathroom, after you finish by waiting, you can do is chat. You stand in front of the mirror and chat. As for people knocking on your door, asking if you're okay, it's probably because you've been in there for too long. Just worried about you.
That's quite rare. I wanted to show you a sidewalk. Sidewalks are unbelievably rare here outside of Taipei. In Taipei, they do a pretty good job. A lot of the places have sidewalks, and they're covered, like this one is, because it rains so much. But here in Taichung, well, most of the sidewalks are either blocked, they just don't exist, and so that means you're forced to walk out on the street or very close to traffic. And if I had a child, I don't know how I would keep it out of harm's way with all the cars going by and the asbestos I'd be feeding it. But it's one of the most infuriating parts of living here, especially for people with families. And there are articles online talking about how it's ridiculous to see whole kindergartens going out for field trips and the kids have to hold up under a rope and they're like inches away from getting hit by a car. It's just ridiculous. The infrastructure here simply didn't really have, I don't know, I guess bigger cars in mind.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. Now with the new MRT and buses, a lot of motorcycles, yeah, it's true. There's really little sidewalk. You have to block it so like cars or motorcycles won't park on the sidewalk. I have a kid and always know that they should be on the inner side of the sidewalk. Motorcycles ride really fast. Sometimes they turn and they don't see them.
Taiwan is known as a pedestrian's hell.
Here in Taiwan, defamation, or libel as it's also known, is a criminal offense. And for a country that's touted as being like the bastion of freedom and democracy, that's just ridiculous. I actually feel terrible for all of the judges that are sat in a criminal court listening to two people bicker back and forth about what they called each other.
That's actually one of the things I love about Taiwan. I've actually used... What happened was I was playing League of Legends and they said something that was sexist. And that's illegal, so I sued them. Now, I didn't bring it to court because the kid that was saying all these really sexist words, they were going to college. Of course, as an entitled kid, you gotta have parents that wipe your butt for you. So I reached the agreement and they paid me money. I was really considering going to court so that it would leave a record for... But The fine is usually pretty low.
It's expensive. Now, yes, it is still cheaper than most Western countries, but it's just not as cheap as it used to be, or at least it's not as cheap as people make it out to be. I'm even guilty of this. In one of my recent videos, I called Taiwan inexpensive to live in, and that's still true when you're talking about things that are immediately available to you, like public transportation, food, but where it gets expensive is things like housing, cars, major purchases like that. The average cost of a house here in Taiwan is $820,000 US. In Taipei, it's even more than that, $950,000. That's the average. And remember what I said at the beginning of the video, it's not like you're getting a big old house that's all up to date with lots of room and yards. You get a building that looks like it's gonna fall over. Cars and motorcycles are subjected to import tax if they come from other places, which is most of them, and so you're paying a lot more money for a car or a motorcycle here than you otherwise would. That's why a lot of people here drive scooters, because they're a lot more affordable. I really want to talk to young people here in Taiwan about how they're able to move on into the world. I understand that they do have a lot of help from their parents when making major purchases like cars and houses, but if they don't have that help, I just don't understand how they do it, because the cost of living in Taiwan is increasing a lot. It's almost on par with Japan, but their wages haven't increased, and so I don't understand how people can afford to live here.
To answer the question for not getting support, the only choice you actually have is to rent a house. And what happens is, if you have an average salary, 30K, your rent is around 8K, 10K, and the rest, you gotta eat, you gotta go out. You're not gonna save much. 20 to 30 years ago, you could probably save up and then you could buy your house. Now in 2020, you would have to save up to 50 years.
But it's still pretty expensive. Here's a hotel, 3 stars in Taipei, for $2,900. That's not expensive, but it's on par with most hotels and cities, I would say, in the States. It's probably one of the biggest complaints I get from foreigners that visit Taiwan, is they always tell me how expensive it is. The wages don't increase, then I just don't understand the higher cost of living.
The salary actually does go up, but the thing is, it's in the wrong order. The salary goes up, and then everything inflates. Every single thing.
It's one of the reasons why Taiwan isn't as big of a tourist country as it could be. I've mentioned this in a previous video, but it's true. People would rather spend their money on places like Thailand, Vietnam, cheaper Southeast Asian countries, than coming here to Taiwan, where you might go to Kenting and spend way more money and see a lot less.
They also eat a lot of lu wei and whatever the this is. And I mean, I just don't understand it, because they do a lot of things like chicken well, they do pork well. I think if I saw this gelatinous stuff in a bowl, I'd go see a doctor. I can also respect that they don't waste any of the animals. They eat all of it. Feet, tongues, head, shoulders, knees, and toes. You name it, these animals don't stand a chance against the Taiwanese.
Chicken feet is so good. I usually go to night market and buy boneless chicken feet. That's a product.
It's just kind of more of an annoyance, and that's when I ride around and it's all the red lights that are here in the cities are really annoying. I like the fact that the red lights have a countdown on them, so you know how long you're going to be waiting. The only problem I have with them is just like how they can be 100 seconds long, and the fact that I know they're 100 seconds long makes me feel like I'm there for a long time.
看这红灯